everyone, it's me again, Brittany, and I'm here today to do my October wrap-up, which I'm just so excited about. I actually read more books than I had originally assumed I'd read. For whatever reason, I kept thinking I was having such a bad reading month, but this is not bad. It's not bad. So I read a total of 11 books this month, which is, you know, pretty good. And yeah, let's kind of just jump into them. So the first book that I finished this month was Sea Fire by Natalie C. Parker. I actually listened to this on audiobook and I loved this. I gave it 5 stars. This is kind of exactly what I was hoping for when I was reading Daughter of the Pirate King, that whole duology. But it was just so well written and it was such a cool pirate story and I loved the storyline. I liked the twist on the classic like pirates out on the ocean. But basically this book has to do with Caledonia Styx and her all-female crew. She is trying to get revenge on the people that murdered her family, and there is kind of like an apocalyptic twist to this, and it's really cool because it doesn't come into play that much, but it really reminds me of the technology in Uglies, if you've read that by Scott Westerfeld. And the Ugly series is one of my all-time favorite series. I used to reread that book all the time, that whole trilogy really. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed this. After that, I listened to The Roanoke Girls by Amy Engel and I gave this 4.5 out of 5 stars. I also really enjoyed this. This is a very dark read and kind of a very not appetizing topic at all, but in general, I just had such a good time listening to it and being in this weird place. I don't know. Basically, there's this girl named Lane, and after her mother commits suicide, she's sent to live with her grandparents, who she's never met. And everything's kind of going well. They're really rich. She has a cousin there named Allegra, and she's like kind of trying to fit into this new life. But she learns this awful, big, mysterious secret, and she runs away because it's just not something she can handle. And 10 years in the future, I believe it's 10 years anyways. Oh, it's 11 years. 11 years in the future, she gets a phone call that Allegra has gone missing. And this could mean anything. This could mean that she's dead, that she ran away, that she... anything. Because the Roanoke Girls have a tendency of dying and going missing. So she goes back to her grandparents' home to try and find her cousin, and just... she has to confront like the demons of her past, and it's really just dark and grueling, and I feel like it was very well written. And yeah, if you're not scared of like the really creepy topics, you're gonna like this. After that, I listened to The Walled City by Ryan Groden. Apparently this was a very audiobook month, who's surprised? And I give this 5 stars. This was another book that I was just so surprised about. I didn't see myself reading this month. I didn't see myself reading this anytime in the near future. I'd heard good things about it, but so long ago that I just wasn't interested anymore. But I had thought that it would be kind of like a creepy book, and since it was October, I was like, you know what, let's just give it a listen. It was available in my library. I said, what the hell? And I loved this. It was just so well written, and it's just so dark and sad, but like hopeful and uplifting. And so we do follow 3 different characters. We have Di, we have Maggie, and we have Jin. I believe it's Jin. Yeah, and we just kind of follow their stories in this walled city. So the walled city is this awful place where crime runs amok because there is no police, there is no anything really, and you can just imagine just how hard it would be to make a living inside there. But it actually was based off of a real walled city, so I thought that was really cool, and I just feel like Ryan Groden did a fantastic job in writing this, and it was just... it pulled up my heartstrings. Next up, I read Empire Storms by Sarah J. Maas. Obviously, I gave this 5 stars. Would you look at all my colorful tabs? I really enjoyed this reread. I found it kind of really slow in the beginning, like the first 200 pages, 300 pages, it was just hard to get through. But once we hit the actual like major plot parts and when like action really starts, I fell in love again with this world and these characters, and I feel like I saw so many things that I just hadn't seen in my first read, and it made me so excited to get to Kingdom of Ash. But I'm not gonna really explain any of this. This is like one of the last books in a very large series, so all you have to know is this is part of the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. Next up, I listened to Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. I gave this 5 stars. I loved it so much. It was so creepy. I feel like this is such a good reading month. Everything's like 5 stars basically so far. But it was just so suspenseful and thrillery and creepy, and I feel like Mira Grant did such a good job using science in this. All of the characters in this are basically some sort of science nerd, scientist, and it's just, she really mixed the terminology and the theories really well with what was actually happening. But basically this research group goes into something called the Mariana Trench because there is legends about this sea creature that lives there, and that research vessel goes missing. Like, all the crew is just missing and the boat comes back ashore and that's it. So in the future we have a new research group, a better prepared research group that wants to find out what happened to them for this mockumentary, but also for science, and it was just so well written, so creepy. Alright, finally not a 5-star book, but we have Neverworld Wake by Marisha Pessl. I did enjoy this, I just feel like the ending was very unsatisfying, and I kind of didn't I liked the concept of the Neverworld Wake. I just feel like I just didn't expect it to be this, I think. I was going into this book expecting something kind of different, and instead it was a lot of a waiting game and just waiting for the characters to kind of like get their shit together, which was frustrating because the characters were really annoying at times, but it's understandable considering their situation. But basically this has to do with a friend group who in the previous year lost like their star member friend, and this mostly follows Beatrice? Yeah, this mostly follows Beatrice, who was the girlfriend of the guy who died, and his death was ruled a suicide, but she never thought it was. So this friend group hasn't hung out for an entire year, and a year passes by and they are meeting back up, and Beatrice hopes to find out what happened to her boyfriend and for them to talk about it and things like that, but instead they happen to get into a car accident, and they thought everything was fine until someone comes up to their door and tells them that they're in something called a Neverworld Wake, and that basically means that they're all dead, and they're all gonna stay dead unless the entire group can agree on one person to live. So yeah, but yeah, I gave it 3 stars just because of like those little details of like the characters were annoying, the ending was unsatisfying, and the Neverworld Wake felt a little too long at times. So next I read Beneath the Sugar Sky by Sheena McGuire. I've been dying to read this for so long. It's the 3rd book in the Wayward Children series, and I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I did really enjoy it. I still love Down Among the Sticks and Bones the most, but this one was just much more of an adventure story, which was very entertaining, and we got to see the, what's it called? Like the bubblegum world, or we get to see a very sugary world. I can't remember what it's called exactly, but it was super cute. I did really enjoy the plot, actually. I think that this one's plot was more well-rounded than the other ones. It was just super adventuresome, and I felt like nothing was left out even though it's such a short book, and I love the new characters that we get introduced to. I talk about this more in one of my reading blogs, but I was just very like happily impressed. I don't know. There was like a fat main character, and I just really loved her character, and I loved her spirit, and I loved her just, I don't know. I thought it was just really cool to see this side of a fat person. I feel like we've never really get to see that in a book, but basically she's very strong, she's very capable. She is the most fit in the entire group, even though all the other people in this group are skinny and should supposedly be athletic, but she's the athletic one, and I just thought that that was like a really cool mix to the story and a really nice side that we don't get to see that often. After that, I listened to Layer of Dreams by Libba Bray. I gave this 4 stars, which I'm surprised about because I loved this so much. It was so fantastic. I really, really loved the evil that we're battling in this book, because by the end you're just, I mean, personally, the only reason I think I didn't give it 5 stars was because I did guess the plot twist very early on in the book. It was just one of those like random thoughts, you know, when you're like, oh, what if it's that? And then it just sticks with you through the rest of the book. That's actually what it ended up being for the most part. So I was just like mildly bummed that I was right, but also kind of like satisfied that I was right, because I don't know. But it was just so great. I really, really loved getting to delve back into this world, and we got to know our characters so much better in Layer of Dreams than we had ever known in the Diviners. I feel like one of the main problems with the Diviners was the character development. Evie and Henry and Ling and Sam and just all of them. They're all so just hammered out in this book, I feel, and I actually have like an investment towards the characters now, which is kind of what I've been missing in the Diviners, and I really can't wait to get to the next one. But basically this one, the big bad, is happening in your dreams. So there's a really just interesting like dream dynamic to this entire book, and we follow like Ling and Henry, who both can like walk through dreams. That's their diviner power, and it's just, I don't know, I just feel like it was mixed very well into the story, while still maintaining a pretty creepy aspect. I actually found this one creepier than the Diviners, and mostly because like it was kind of dreams, and dreams kind of freaked me out a little, but also because I just feel like there were creepier aspects, like creepier characters that were turning people into like not normal people. I don't know how to explain it without spoiling everything. Next up, I read Terrib Dawn by Sarah J. Maas. I gave this 5 stars. I actually was really nervous going back into a reread for this because I've never liked Kale, and I thought that I was gonna start to hate Kale again, because in this reread I've started to kind of like Kale again, which is so weird. But I thought I would hate him after this, and no, I actually started loving him and like really understanding his situation in this book, and I ended up feeling that this is Kale's Heir of Fire. If you didn't watch my book talk, that's what I kind of like got away from this. Like, he's going through a lot of really hard times, and he has to kind of pull himself back up by the end, which is exactly what happens to Selena in Heir of Fire, and I really like how it was done. But I was definitely way more invested in Nezrin and Sartak because they are my babies, and if you haven't read this, you have no idea what I'm talking about, and I'm sorry about that, but like, I'm so invested in them. And Irene and Kale, like, yeah, but no. Nezrin and Sartak. So I loved this. I loved seeing a different continent in this world. I loved the southern continent. It's like this perfect, beautiful utopia of a place. And I just really like the royal family and like the leadership, and I don't know. If you've been putting it off, just know the first 300 pages, yeah, they're pretty slow, but you just have to get through that, and then you're really, really gonna like it, because it was actually fantastic. So yeah, if you're putting it off and you're like, well, I've tried reading it, I know, it's really hard in the beginning. Just listen to the audiobook, like zoom through that first part and you'll be good. After that, I listened to The Coldest Girl in Coldtown by Holly Black, and I gave this book 4 stars. I was so pleasantly surprised by this. I was not expecting that much from it, and maybe that's why I liked it, but it ended up being just like kind of like a trashy paranormal romance. And I read this for the Witchathon. I talk about it way more in my wrap-up vlog, which is already posted, so if you want to check that out to hear more of my thoughts on it, then you can do that. But yeah, I gave it 4 stars. And lastly, I finished The Girl Who Drank the Moon, which was the group book for the Witchathon, and I loved this so much. This is one of those books that I never would have picked up on my own, and I'm just so glad that Rhiannon picked it out for Witchathon, because it was everything that I would have wanted and more. It was so wholesome and so heartfelt, and just like, it pulled at my heartstrings. It was so well done and well written, and I loved it so much, and I loved our characters. Like, they weren't perfect by any means, but like, you're really rooting for them, and I really love the topics that were discussed in it. It's made me way more interested in delving into more middle grade, because my real only experience with middle grade is the Percy Jackson books. So I want to explore different ones, because this one actually ended up being really fantastic, and I loved how it made me feel towards the end. So I think it's amazing that this book is going to make me want to read more books in a genre that I had previously kind of signed off on. So yeah, that's all I read for this month. I'm actually so proud of what I did, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I was putting so much pressure on myself to finish way more books, but I forgot to realize that like all the books that I was reading were really cool, and that just like goes to show like you have to put way less pressure on yourself. Like, personally, I have to put way less pressure on myself as a booktuber, because I read a lot of really cool books this month, and I had completely forgotten until right now. Like, I was still so caught up on all the books that I didn't finish that I didn't even think to realize that I read some really awesome books. So yeah, oh my god, that's, welcome to my TED Talk. But yeah, alright, so I make videos Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays most of the time, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!